Welcome, brave souls, to a chilling journey into the depths of human horror. I'm your host, and tonight, we delve into the darkest corners of the internet to bring you spine-tingling tales that will make your blood run cold. Grab your blankets, turn off the lights, and prepare to be haunted by true stories from the Reddit's infamous Let's Not Meet subreddit. These encounters are real, and they will leave you questioning the safety of your own world. Knock, knock. I'm renting a studio apartment in the big city while I have an internship. It's in an old building with one other apartment, and we both share a hallway with a locked door to the outside world at the end of it. When I first got here, I arrived pretty late, so the landlord left a key for me in the letterbox and texted me the combination. The next day, when I came home from work, the key wouldn't work in the lock anymore. I was pretty puzzled, since it had worked perfectly before, so I called a locksmith to see if he could let me in. He told me the lock had failed, and it would have to be replaced completely, including with a new key. It cost me $300 all up, but I was tired and hungry and glad to be back inside, and I thought I could show the receipt to the landlord and be reimbursed. Being the absent-minded person I am, every time I got home late from work I would see the receipt on the table and think, "That's right, I need to tell the landlord, and give them the new key." But I never got around to it. Then, a few weeks ago, I was lying in bed watching TV on a low volume before I fell asleep. I was just starting to doze off when I heard a sound that jerked me awake. The sound of a key being inserted into my door. I immediately jerked up in bed and gathered the covers around me, going through the list of people in my head who it might be. Not my parents, they're 5 hours away. Not a friend, none of them know this address. And besides, how would they get into the secure hallway? Aside from me, the only person with a key was the landlord. And why the fuck would he let himself in unannounced at midnight? While I was sleeping? In the nude? I sat there frozen, staring at the door in horror and waiting for it to open, except it didn't. I changed the locks. As I sat there paralyzed with fear, that fact slowly sank in. I changed the fucking lock when I moved in. They couldn't get in, because the lock screwed up and I was too flaky to tell anyone about it. I slipped out of bed and pulled on my work clothes, then kind of just stood there in the middle of the room, with my phone in my hand, waiting for them to leave. I was way too scared to breathe too loud or even turn off the TV, in case they realized someone was inside. My door doesn't have a peephole, but even if it did, I probably would have been too much of a coward to cross my room and stand that close to it. I felt like I was having a mini heart attack. The lock was audibly being manipulated at this point. Whoever was on the other side was loudly jiggling the key and shaking the knob, and I heard the door creak as though someone was leaning on it. I was still ready to crap my pants, but my mind bizarrely wandered to how I would tell my parents about this. I clearly imagined my mum saying, "Well, did you tell them to go away?" and making up an excuse that it was just someone lost, or they got the wrong apartment. It sounds ridiculous, but I needed to prove that I wasn't an irrational person. I needed to prove that this wasn't just some silly mistake I was blowing out of proportion. So I cleared my throat and let out a feeble "Hello?" The shaking stopped immediately. This was almost worse than the noise from before. Every muscle in my body tensed listening for a sound, and I quickly decided to turn off my TV, since they already knew I was here. Then it was just me, the silence, and my mind working in overtime to try to explain who the hell this person was, until they knocked on the door. I stood dead still in the middle of the room, but my stomach gave an involuntary jolt at the sound. He knocked again. A muffled voice came through the door, and it creaked again, like someone was leaning on it. "Hey, let me in." This might be the part of the horror movie where the dumb girl opens the door, just to satisfy her curiosity. But every cell in my body simultaneously screamed, "Oh, hell nah." I decided I would continue with my currently plan, to stand tense and frozen in the middle of the room. Except I backed towards the kitchenette and grabbed the biggest knife I could find. In the absence of my response, knock became a loud bang. First it sounded like someone was insistently pounding their closed fists on the door, but soon the whole door frame and walls shook from the impact. I realized the person was throwing their body weight against it. At this point, I called the police. I can't even remember what I said to them. I was so filled with white-hot panic. I was later told I screamed hurry, send everyone, which is a bit embarrassing. I had trouble remembering my address, but luckily it was still on the locksmith receipt still sitting on the table. I owe that fucking guy a beer. When I was talking to the operator, she said she could hear the guy trying to get in, and I should lock myself in the bathroom if I could. I guess he overheard me on the phone, because the banging abruptly stopped. Suddenly I was in the Jaws situation again, where the shark is gone but you know it's just under the water. I held onto the knife so tightly that my nails made a mark in the palm of my hand where they wrapped around it, and I kept asking the operator, "What if he comes back?" Luckily I didn't have to worry about that. The next people to knock on my door were the cops. They were able to get into a hallway because someone left the shared access door wide open. Of course the perpetrator was long gone. I still don't know who knocked on my door that night, and I'm not sure I want to know. My New Year's resolution was to stop putting things off, but now I know that good things come to those who wait, to talk about their new key. Scary clown in woods. I have been debating on posting this. Not because I have been scared, but simply because this is my first post since joining. Please forgive my writing as sometimes my wording and punctuation could be better. I'll start off by explaining the area so you can get a good picture of where this occurred. We lived in a small neighborhood. All of the surrounding streets dead end into a half-circle park. Behind the park are some woods and a railroad track. When we were younger, we all played in the front part of the woods. We never ventured too far back. This was our play area for years. Never had an issue or scare. This area was a pretty and well-lit wooded area. Anyhow, one day my brother Jimmy, my best friend Sarah, and my brother's best friend Ian were all building a dam in the middle of the small creek that ran through the park and the woods. The boys decided they were going to head back to Ian's house for some snacks. Sarah and I said we would stay and finish our camp area. As we are moving rocks around, I get a very odd feeling come over me. A strange feeling that we are being watched. I immediately think it's the boys trying to scare us and just continue with what we are doing. Sarah and I load up some big rocks and head back to the creek and put them down at the dam. I get that feeling again, and as I stand up I see something straight in front of me about 30 feet away. I can't clearly make out what it is yet because it is behind a bush, but I do see that it is a pattern of red and blue. I know that's nothing the boys had on, so at this point I am focusing trying to figure out what it is. As I am scanning up the bush, I start to realize it is a clown. I shit you not, my heart started pounding immediately. The clown and my eyes lock. He is wearing a blue/red hat with a reverse pattern red/blue jumpsuit. I grab Sarah's shirt and immediately pull her upright, and she notices the man right away. He is smiling with a full face of makeup and has a huge knife. We both say nothing and start running as fast as our legs can take us. He begins to follow. We can hear twigs snapping and ground crunching, but we are booking it. We run through the front of the woods, through the side of the park, and up her dead-end street. Ian and Jimmy are 2 houses up from the end and see us running and are screaming what is going on. While running past, we scream a clown and they start laughing. We are still running, screaming for our lives, and finally make it to the middle of the street where Sarah's dad, Danny, is now running out the front door because he hears us screaming. We meet Danny right at the beginning of the neighbor's house, and we are trying to explain what we've seen, and he says, "Girls, stop it now. This is ridiculous. What are you talking about?" We try to catch our breath. By this time, Jimmy and Ian have caught up to us. We are crying and pointing and telling Danny again that we've seen a clown and knife. Jimmy and Ian are laughing, and Danny is asking if they played a prank on us. About this time, an old yellow Pinto type of car comes from the dead end at the park and pulls right up next to the sidewalk of the yard we are in. Sure enough, plain as day, it's the fucking clown. No hat this time, but knife in hand and telling us to come here. Danny starts shoving us all toward the house, and he himself is scared and running now. The car drives off down the street. We get inside and Danny calls the police. We had to give statements and police patrolled the neighborhood and the park for a few weeks. We were never allowed to go in the park again, and a few months after that the city started to clear out the woods. Cut down many trees and made a walking area that you could see through all the way to the train tracks. My friend and I used to talk about this many times up until her death. No one would believe us had they not seen it as well. It was just so scary. I think they only got to see him because whoever it was had to go down the dead-end street to leave the neighborhood. Either way, this man was not afraid of us, nor the small group of people that gathered from our screaming. He very bravely stopped right in front of us, as her father tried to comfort us and calm us down, all while flashing his knife. We are lucky to be alive, I feel. Had it just been one of us left in the woods, which sometimes occurred, I don't think there would have been a group of 4 of us any longer. Sarah's dad stopped drinking that day. We all have a fear of clowns,